How's it going, folks? Today we're going to be talking about the post-spawn walleye bite, where to find them, and how to catch them. Let's start with where the walleye are. The walleye moved out of the rivers and out of the gravel substrate areas onto the post-spawn first staging areas near the river mouths and the shallow sand flat bays. The reason for this is the forages moved into those areas to start spawning and have hatched and now are the main food source for the walleye. If you can't find walleye in the shallows, then you guys start looking at those late first staging areas. This will be your offshore points, humps, and weed edges. Typically around this time I'm fishing structure and cover around the 4 to 12 foot depth range. So let's get into the baits for post-spawn walleye. You're going to want a jig in a plastic, paddle tails and swim baits, hard baits, hair jigs, skirted jigs, and chatterbaits, slip floats, and power corking floats. So let's start with the jigs. First up, we got the stand-up jig and ball jig. I normally use these when fish are lethargic and when I find that they're keying in on meat type presentation, so like your live minnows or frozen minnows. You're going to want to use techniques like the lift hop method or jig dragging. Next two jig heads we have are the Aspirin head jig and the Swimbait head jig. I start throwing these jig heads when I notice fish are a little bit more aggressive. I start with the Aspirin head for more of a darting action, and then I upgrade to the Swimbait head jig for when I'm starting to throw bigger plastics to sort out quality fish. You're going to be doing lift hop techniques, snap jigging, vertical jigging, and moping techniques. So let's start with the Aspirin head jig. I use a 1/4 ounce for shallow water and a 3/8 ounce for deeper water, and I keep using under 4-inch plastics with these types of jig heads. And I've got it on my St. Croix Mojo Bass 6'8" medium extra fast with a Pissy Fun Viper. Whereas the Swimbait jig head, I'm using a 3/8 ounce for both shallow and deep water and plastics bigger than 5 inches. And this is on a Shimano SLX 7-foot medium extra fast with a Pissy Fun Carbon 2 2000 series. Next up on the list is paddle tails and swim baits. Use a paddle tail to search an area out when fish are neutral, aggressive, and chasing, whereas I use a swim bait for when fish are keying in on specific types of forage and they want a higher calorie meal. For the paddle tails, I'm using a 3/8 ounce ball head jig. The reason for this is when I'm swimming through the middle of the water column, it has a nice natural roll to it, but when I'm lifting and hopping, this bait will naturally sit upright with the hook point facing up, making it easier for walleye to bite down on it. And I'm running this on a 7'1" medium heavy fast action E6X G Loomis with a Pissy Fun Spark Pro bait caster. Next on the list is hard baits. So this is going to be your lipless crankbaits and jerkbaits. Use these baits when conditions are windy, overcast, or pre-front, and when you find the fish mood is in the stable to aggressive side. As for my hard bait rod, I'm using an Abu Garcia Accurist 6'6" medium bait caster. The reason for this is when I'm dealing with treble hooks, I want a little bit more play in my rod tip. That way when the fish is fighting, I don't pull the treble hooks out of the fish's mouth immediately. Next on the list is hair jigs, skirted jigs, and my personal favorite, chatterbait jigs. Use hair jigs and skirted jigs in the early post-spawn when water temperatures are colder. You can also use these when you are catching fish on the 1/4 ounce Aspirin head jig setup, but you want to profile bulk those same 4-inch plastics to sort out the quality fish. As for the hair jig and skirted jig, use a medium fast action rod. The reason for this is that way you're not snapping the bait off the bottom, you're giving more of a lift, causing that hair to flow naturally through the water column as it comes back down to touch bottom. And use a chatterbait for windy, overcast, reduced water visibility conditions. You can also use a chatterbait when walleye are actively chasing the paddle tail setup, and you want to profile bulk the same paddle tail presentation to sort out the quality fish. The chatterbait setup, you're going to want to use a 7-foot medium heavy fast action bait casting rod with a 7.1:1 gear ratio reel. The reason for the high gear ratio is that way when the bait hits bottom, you can engage that blade faster with a high pickup rate. But when you're working this bait like a traditional jig, you can pick up that line slack as it makes bottom contact faster. Last but not least, we have the slip float and power corking setups. I have a slip float and power cork breakdown video in the description down below, but we're going to go over here quickly. For your slip float, you want to use a 7-foot medium light fast action rod. The reason for that is you're going to be doing a sweeping hook set with this rod because you want the rod to load up when you're doing that hook set. You want to be able to pin that hook with the rod. These setups become very important this time of year to help determine what kind of bite you're dealing with, but they also act as a mini sonar. If you take this bait and you throw it in the same spot over and over again and catch fish every time, then you know these fish are laying to structure or cover. If you take this bait and you throw it in random spots throughout the lake and you catch fish in random spots, then you know these fish are roaming. Not only that, but you can tell what their active depth is too. So what I mean by that is if you take this bait and you put that hook 1 foot above their head and they'll chase up to that 1 foot point but don't go any further than that, then you know that these fish are pressured and they're lethargic. If you take and move this bait to the upper half to 2/3 of the water column and they're chasing that bar, then you know these fish are active and willing to chase other baits, so you can move up to the 1/4 ounce aspirin jig head or a swimbait style presentation. Whereas the power cork setup you use when you're already catching fish on the slip float, but they're not quite active enough to eat the jig in a plastic or the swimbait presentations. This kind of balances in between the two of them, so you can put the slip float in the same location every time at the same water depth, but you have the option of making the bait move by moving your rod tip to increase the chances of a reaction strike. You're going to use a 7-foot medium fast action rod. The reason for this is that since you're going to be jigging this plastic as a power corking setup, you're picking up that line slack every time you jig a little bit. So you're going to do a more traditional hook set with this rod because you have that extra backbone to set the hook in as soon as you get that reaction strike. The top 3 key tips for post-spawn walleye are location. Use your side imaging and down imaging to scan out the first staging locations for walleye. 2 is match the hatch, both in size and profile. And 3 is your fishing technique. Start aggressive, drop down to finesse, and then build your way back up to aggressive techniques. And there you have it, folks. I hope this helps you feel more confident catching post-spawn walleye and using baits you already know from bass fishing. Drop your questions or tell me what worked for you in the comments. Thanks for watching my first seminar, and I'll catch you guys next time.